Recording. So the first thing what we are going to do is we are going to create the virtual network. Before we go to create the virtual network, the first foremost thing what you need to do is you need to create a resource group. Okay. So what do you mean by a resource group? Resource group is nothing but it is a logical group of all your resources. It is a logical grouping of Azure resources. Okay. So whenever I'm discussing about Entra ID, then I will discuss about the hierarchy of your Azure resources. Okay. So how the hierarchy will be there. Okay. So at present, you just understand what do you mean by a resource group. It is nothing but it is a logical grouping of Azure resources. Okay. Okay. So now click on virtual network. So before that, let us go and create the resource group. Okay. Create virtual net. So I will say VNet. Okay. VNet is my resource group. Click on review and create. Click on create. So this is a simple step. Just whenever you create any uh, resource group, just you need to select the region and you need to give the name. Give me just a second. Sorry for the delay. Okay, so we have created the resource group. Now what we will do, we will create the virtual network. Okay. Okay. So now we are going to create the virtual network. Okay. Click on virtual network. So it will create so first it will show you different options: basic, security, IP address, tags, and review and create. So you need to give the name of the virtual network, VNet1. You can give any name. So there is no restriction. So it may be capital or it may be small. Okay. So next click on, so you need to select the region. Click on next. So here, if you see here, you have different option. Virtual network encryption. So what do you mean by encryption? So whatever the traffic you send from source to destination within your virtual network, the data will be encrypted. Okay. So what do you mean by encryption? That means you are translating your plain format of your data to encrypted data. Encrypted data is nothing but cipher text. So cipher text is nothing but unreadable format. So which you cannot read the data. Okay. So whatever the data you are sending, you cannot read that one. Okay. So there are two types of encryption. Okay. So you can do symmetric encryption and you can do asymmetric encryption. Okay. So whenever it comes to symmetric encryption. So what do you mean by symmetric encryption? It is nothing but it is which is having the same key. That means from where you send the data, it will use the key to encrypt and it will use the same key at destination in order to decrypt. Okay. So are you able to follow me? What do you mean by encryption and what do you mean by decryption?
Yes. Hello.
Okay. So now encryption is nothing but you are changing your data into unreadable format. Okay. Next, coming to Azure Bastion, it is nothing but a jump server. So I think you are working. So everyone is working. So you understand by what do you mean by jump server. So jump server is nothing but it is a in a simple terminology, if I want to say, it is a public server which will be there in front of your public server, private servers. Private servers. So how you will connect? So do you have any idea what do you mean by a jump server? Have you any time used this server?
Yes.
So jump server is nothing but it is having the public IP address where all your applications will not be having the public IP address for the connectivity. Okay. So this will act like a proxy for your VMs. Okay. That is called as Bastion. So it is a managed jump server is a managed service in Azure, which we termed as Azure Bastion. Okay. Okay. The next one is Azure Firewall. So what do you mean by a firewall? I think I told you on the day before yesterday, I told you. Firewall is nothing but you are allowing the traffic or you are denying the traffic. That means whatever the data is coming inside your data center or whatever the traffic which is leaving your data center, that we normally quote it as firewall. Okay, allowing or denying the traffic. Okay, denying the traffic. Okay. And after that, we have DDoS network protection. DDoS network protection is nothing but, so do you know what do you mean by a DDoS? distributed denial of service. This is nothing but if you want to restrict any attack onto your systems. So then what you will do, you will enable this DDoS protection on your virtual network. So DDoS is nothing but you will get millions of requests at the same time to your application. Millions of requests at the same time to your application. Okay? To your application. Okay? So now click on next. So here you will give the related to IP address. So we will call that one as CIDR range, classless inter-domain routing, which we normally called as IP ranges. Okay. So now here already it is default one. So see, this is my VNet range 10.0.0.0/16 is my VNet range. And by default, it has created one subnet default 10.0.0.0/24. Okay. So this is, so if you want to create a new subnet, what you need to do? You need to click on add a subnet. Okay. So here, just you need to click on add subnet and you need to change the name of this subnet as private application subnet. And after that, click. So you need to select how many IP addresses you want in that subnet. Suppose if you want only 32 addresses, you need to select that one. And everything will be default for now. Okay. So at present, these are everything will be default. Okay. Click on add. So you got another subnet. Here, not only here, after creating the virtual network also, you can create the subnet. I will show you. Okay. So click on next. So here tags, what tags you want? Suppose I will say dev and I will give that value as dev environment. Okay. Click on next. Click on create. So this is how we will create the virtual network. Okay. Is it clear?
Yes. And could you repeat? You said like DDV something that the term. What is
DDoS.
that? DDoS.
Yeah.
What is it again?
See, DDoS is nothing but I think you have heard about malware.
Oh yes.
Malware or vulnerability.
Yes.
Right? So DDoS attack is nothing but if you have a application, if you get millions of requests at the same time, okay, that is nothing but
Oh,
attack
okay.
on your
I got it. I got it.
yeah, millions of requests you will get at the same time. So normally we call that one as denial of service. That means whenever they want to crash your application, what they will do, they will send some millions of requests to your application by using some software. Okay. Normally we quote it as malware functionality or vulnerability. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So this is called as DDoS attack. Okay. Denial of service, distributed denial of service. Okay. See,
Got
the
it.
difference between DOS attack and DDoS attack is DOS attack is from single machine. Whenever you could call about distributed, it will be with multiple servers or multiple devices. Okay. Okay.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So now, once you created the virtual network, just click on that one and you will have multiple options here. So here you can see subnets. If you want to create any other subnet, just you need to click on here and you need to go and create your subnet. Okay. Just how we have created before. You need to just give the name. You need to select how many IP addresses you want and you need to come down and you need to just click on add. Okay. This is how you will create the subnet. Okay. So if you want to create the bastion, so why you need to create the bastion? Because if you want to connect any VM which is having private IP address, then you will use Bastion. So see what it says. Azure Bastion protects your virtual machine by secure and seamless RDP and SSH connectivity without the need to expose them to public IP address. Deploying will automatically create a Bastion host on the subnet in your virtual network. Okay. On your virtual network, it will create you the Bastion. Okay. So DDoS protection already we have discussed. Firewall we have discussed. Network manager is something. If you have multiple firewalls, then we used to have our virtual network manager. Okay. This we will see later. So normally it is not discussed more. Okay. DNS server. So what do you mean by a DNS server? So when it comes to DNS server, it is nothing but whenever you have your on-premises DNS server, if you want to use the same DNS server on the Azure itself, what you can do, you can use this DNS server option. Okay. So normally in your organization, normally you have your own DNS server. Okay. So that will be maintained on the Linux machines while they download some packages like bind or code DNS. So these are type of binaries which they will install on your virtual machine and they will convert that server into DNS. Okay. So if you have any IP address related to your DNS server on the on-premises, just you can have that IP address on your DNS server and you can use the DNS server for providing the DNS details. Okay. So coming to peering. So what do you mean by peering? If you want to communicate between two different VNets, suppose if you have two different networks, if you want to connect between these two networks, then what you will do? You will just create something called as peering. Okay. So we will go and create the peering. Okay. So how we will create this peering? So let us go and go back, create another virtual network. So I will say VNet 2. I am creating in the same region. Next. So I'm not doing anything. Click on next. Here I'm changing the IP address. Okay. 172.16.0.0/16. So I'm not going to create any subnet. I'm just going with the default option. Next. Create. Okay. So this is the way how we will create the virtual network. Okay. So this has been completed. Okay. Now what I will do, I will go to virtual network, refresh. So I have two different virtual networks. This is created in different resource group. Okay. So let us see whether that will create or not. Okay. Click on add. I will say VNet 1 to VNet 2 and I will select my VNet. Okay. Click on this one, this option. Click on this option and I will say VNet 2 to VNet 1. So here why I have selected this option? Because if I want to have a bidirectional communication, if I want to have a bidirectional communication between VNet 1 to VNet 2 and VNet 2 to VNet 1, then we will enable this option. Okay. So click on add. So now you can see I am creating two different peering options. VNet 1 to VNet 2, VNet 2 to VNet 1. So it is fully synchronized. So now if here you can see everything is configured. Okay. Any questions till now? So how to create a VNet, how to create a subnet, how to create VPC peering. Any questions?
I'm okay.
Okay. So now coming to the next one, service endpoint and private endpoint. Okay. So where exactly we use those? See, coming to service endpoint, coming to private endpoint. Okay. So normally we use this one in order to have the communication between Azure Resources with the help of Azure Backbone Network. Okay. So service endpoint is nothing but simple say, I have a Azure region. In Azure region, I have a VM and I have a database. Okay. So I have a virtual machine and I have a database. So normally before we have service endpoint and private endpoint, how the traffic will go is my traffic will go to internet. From VM, it will go to internet and from internet, it will come to database. Okay. But once you enable this service endpoint, the traffic will go via the service endpoint which is there in your virtual network and it will forward the traffic to your database. Okay. Clear? So the use of service endpoint is whatever the traffic is leaving from your VM, in order to reach to your database, the traffic will go over Azure Backbone Network. Azure Backbone Network. Clear? In the same way, private endpoint will also do the same, but the only difference is whenever you use service endpoint, it will have the public IP address as endpoint. Okay? Public IP address as endpoint. But when it comes to private endpoint, it will have the private IP address. Okay? That is the only difference. Both are same. Both will use Azure Backbone Network in order to connect from your VM to database or VM to your storage account. But the difference here is for service endpoint, you will be using public IP address, and for private endpoint, you will be using the private IP address of your virtual network. Okay? Clear? Any questions?
I have a question like
Yeah.
without this endpoint, no other way to communicate with our VM and the database within Azure, because we are on a single VNet, right? In the same VNet, now we have creating a VM. In the same VNet, we are creating a database. Why we need an additional endpoints?
Because databases are AWS managed. Okay?
Okay.
Where they
Okay.
will have the public endpoints. Okay. So if
Okay.
suppose see, if my database is in on the VM itself. Okay,
Okay.
suppose this is my laptop. I have installed my database here. Then whatever you are saying, I don't need any service endpoint and I don't need any private endpoint. But these
Okay.
are the databases which are maintained by Azure, which will not be
Okay.
there in your network. Okay. So that is
Okay.
the reason why we are using service endpoint and private endpoint. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Some short of, I got it. But no, however, if I subscribe, Azure, and then I have my VNet created for my company, and inside my, VNet, I mean, the VNet is equal to like AWS VPC, right? VPC and VNet are same, right?
Only technology is different. Okay. So there
Yeah,
we called it as VPC. Here we call it as VNet. That's all.
VNet, right? The both are same, right? Yeah.
Yes.
In the sense, I have VNet. Now within a VNet, I need a database. I need a instance, any instance, Linux or Windows, whatever. Um, since if let's say some of the database, it's completely managed by Azure, and if I need uh, uh, if I need my own database, like bring on your own license kind of stuff, database, still I need any service gateway, sorry, endpoint, or private gateway endpoint.
See, where is your database? That is there on the Azure itself, or that is there on your on-premises?
No, it is on both compute and database on the same VNet in the Azure.
Okay. Let me rephrase the question. So I missed it somewhere. So you are saying that this is my virtual network. Okay.
I assume that my application running on Azure and my database also sitting on Azure. That's it. But nowhere connecting with on-prem.
See. Okay. So I will tell you two scenarios. Okay. So in the scenario one, okay, in the scenario one, so what is my point is you have a VM where is your Java application is running. Okay, for example. Okay. And you have a database which is installed on the same VM. Here you have your SQL server. Okay.
Mhm.
So in this case, you don't need any service endpoint or you don't need any private endpoint. Okay. This is scenario one. Now, in the second scenario, if you have a VM, the same VM, which is having your Java application, but this time you are not using VM where you have installed the database, but there is a database which is managed by Azure. Okay. So
Mhm.
the underlying hardware, the entire thing is managed by Azure itself. So you are just using that database. That's all. Okay. So in this case, if you want to connect between this VM to this VM, you need to use
Okay.
service endpoint or private endpoint. Okay.
Okay. I
So
got it.
it may be by BIOL or you are taking the license from Azure itself. It may be anything.
Oh,
There will
okay.
be anything. Then also you need this service endpoint or private endpoint.
Okay.
Okay. Suppose see you have a VM here and you have a database in your on premises. Then what you need to do is you need to create a private endpoint. Okay. You need to
Okay.
create a private endpoint at that location, at that point. Okay. So
Okay.
private endpoint is nothing but here. Normally, what technology we will use is private link. Okay. We will
Okay.
use private link. Okay. Clear? Now, is it clear
Clear.
everything?
Clear. Clear. Clear.
So now after this, so this is about the major part of virtual network. So these are the major thing which we need to discuss. And we have only left over with two different topics. One is VPN and one is ExpressRoute. Okay. So let me give you an overview of these two. So what do you mean by a VPN? What do you mean by ExpressRoute? Both have the same functionality. Both is having the same functionality, but the major difference between VPN and ExpressRoute is VPN works on internet and ExpressRoute is a dedicated fiber. So which we have discussed, I think, which we have already discussed on this one. So that means dedicated fiber connectivity. So they will take the lease and they will use the bandwidth on that fiber. That's all. Okay, clear?
Clear.
So in this VPN, we have two types of VPNs: site-to-site VPN and point-to-site VPN. So we will see in practical how to create the site-to-site and point-to-site VPN. So, but whenever it comes to site-to-site VPN, what we do is we will create something called as data center to data center. If you want to communicate between two different data centers by using VPN, then we will use site-to-site. Okay. But whenever you want to communicate between your data center to your laptop, then we will use point-to-site VPN. Okay.
Say it again. Laptop to data center means you are saying like where is the data center? Data center is in Azure, and your laptop is
Okay.
outside of
See.
Azure.
Okay. I will tell you. I will
You
tell
mean to
you.
say on
I
premise?
will tell you. Yes, right. See,
Okay.
it may be any data center. Okay. It may be your on-premises or it may be your Azure data center. If you are connecting the Azure data center on your on-premises data center, so I think you are working. So you know something like you have a VPN configuration on your laptop. Suppose if you want to connect to your data center for any internal application, okay, if you want to use any internal application of your organization, then compulsory you need to connect to the VPN, right?
Yep.
So then we will use something called as point-to-site VPN. Okay.
Okay.
But if you want to communicate between data center to data center, then we will use something called as site-to-site VPN. Okay.
Okay.
And coming to the ExpressRoute, there is nothing much to discuss. It is a data center to data center communication where you will have a fiber lease line which they will use to communicate between Azure data center to our on-premises data center. Okay, so here the cost is more and latency will be less compared to VPN. So tomorrow what we will do, we will see how to create the site-to-site VPN. Okay.
Okay.
So any questions?